Well, thank you very much to all of the panelists. The question I have is if both the American and the Japanese influence on military reform in Myanmar is so limited, such small-scale activities, are there any other armed forces in the region or elsewhere that do have a larger influence and a larger effect on the way in which the Myanmar armed forces face these 7 areas that I listed earlier? And Dr. Aung, maybe you could talk a little bit about other armed forces, Indonesia, China, Thailand.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the question. I'll try my best to answer this. Indonesian actually is, I think we may have a kind of moral kind of influence because we're talking about transparency in Myanmar context. In fact, to me, actually, this dual function is actually with Myanmar military from the very beginnings, since late 40s. Actually, that's when we talk about transparency, we borrow the idea of transparency from Indonesia. I think this is just for the justification. That's what I believe. And I think at the same time, right now we're talking about, I think at one stage, Myanmar Defense Minister was talking about reducing the number of military representatives in future when the situation arises. So obviously, I think the Myanmar military learned something from the Indonesian experience. Probably in the near future, when they are more confident about the civilians, administrations, then probably they will reduce the number of representation in the parliament, and also we may be seeing some sort of civilian control over the military or parliamentary oversight over the military. In terms of China, well, right now I think we sent quite a large number of officers to China for various forms of military training. In the last, if I remember correctly, in the last fiscal year, from April 2013 to March 2014, we sent about 75 officers. And that is, almost a quarter, 25% of our total overseas trainings. We sent quite a number of officers to India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. They received 15 around, and also to other countries, including Russia, like that. And probably next year, I think I heard that there may be over 200 or 250 officers going to China for various forms of training. So, and the training program in China has been for over 20 years, since our modernization in 1989. So it's a long-term impact, and many of those trained in the Chinese PLA Staff College has reached a very high level. So security perceptions and the foreign civil relations, their practice in PLA is very much in their minds. And that is exactly why we try to encourage countries like United States and Japan to, help military to learn more about the other forms of civil military relations. I think Japan, General has rightly talked about the issue about bringing the, military officers. Last year, in December, I was there with the reception for this delegation led by Lieutenant General Aung. And the next delegation is going to visit in August this year. We are already planning. And also, I think, the 2 cadets are going to the Defense Academy this year. And this is a first time probably for Myanmar Armed Forces to send the cadet overseas in the last maybe 10 years. We sent actually one to the Philippines a few years back then, but unfortunately that guy got married with a local and didn't come back. So I think that we are quite reluctant. And also
a soldier or a sailor?
Soldier, I think. But the thing is, these boys are still very young because our cadets are 16-year-old. So I think we are choosing from the second year, and then we trained language. And also, I think for further facilitation of the foreign military education programs, we now invited a foreign language instructors. Now Japan is providing 2 language instructors at the Defense Service Academy. And in future, I think we may expect to send more cadets to the Japanese Defense Academy. So if I have to conclude, I think that the Indonesian military provides some sort of moral influence. But in reality, I think we still have to cope with the long-term exposure of Chinese way of managing defense. That is what I have to say. But let me correct a little bit about general presentation. So I don't really mean to do it. But I think what general is saying is maybe ranks, not the officer. I think my belief is that there are still more than enough candidates for officer corps. There are a lot of applicants for the Defense Services Academy, but the quota was set by the military itself. In the early 2000s, from the 47th intake, I think maybe about 3,000, average 3,000 plus candidates for several years. The problem was there was a 30 years manpower project, and that was hastily implemented within 5 to 10 years. So what happened now is there's so many majors. Several batches becoming major, and there are very few positions in the lieutenant colonel. And that's a big headache for the military right now.
Oh, thank you very much. The details are interesting and familiar. I think we are coming up on the end of our time, so for questions from those of you who've been listening, we're coming right to a coffee break so you can catch us individually and follow up any questions. And we will also have a little bit of time to talk later this afternoon. But just from my experience in this business of military-to-military engagement and relations and so on, I think we should carry a distinction in our mind between education and training. Training is how to shoot your rifle, how to adjust your artillery, how to do squad tactics. This is real how-to stuff. Education is designed to open the mind of officers and senior ratings to the major ideas of the military business, civil-military relations, strategy, overall thinking. And I think that we make a tremendous mistake in the United States and perhaps in other countries in restricting education, which is designed to open minds, to bring people to think more widely about the role of the armed forces in society, relations to its people, relations to its government, and others, which I think ought to be available to officers in other countries no matter what. In fact, the more authoritarian the country, I think the more valuable is education in terms of opening minds. Training should be carefully metered based on the use to which the country that you're providing it to would put it. So I wish we could draw this distinction. It's been a frustration of mine for 30 some odd years, so I've been working on it without success for that period of time. But I do think that coming clearly out of this panel is the need for the United States, Japan, and other countries who come from democratic traditions to be able to discuss these issues with those in Myanmar who have this reformist tendency that Dr. Aung so eloquently described.